I don't even know what's going to happen. This is the first edition. I think I'm going to release this next week, so this will be the first one. I had thought about bulk taping. This is Ken Napzok. Hi, that's me. This is the Blathering, or what I'm thinking of calling it, the Blathervation, which is the stupidest name I've ever come up with. But it is a conversation. I used to do interviews. The Napzok Files, I used to invite my friends over. They'd sit in my apartment. We talk about life and movies and digital media, and I try to find inspirational stories. And you know what? We found them because I got great friends. But I went away from that. And I decided, maybe with the Blathering brand, it's time to talk to other human beings, not just me staring at a camera. And to do that, is as someone who I'll say was first. I first got introduced as a listener of some of my shows, and it always seems like such an ego thing for me to be like, he liked my podcast. Now we're talking. But what ends up happening is I think honest dialogue begins out of things like that. And actually, it turns out I knew him before I knew him, and we're going to get into that. Coming to us from Winnipeg, that's up in Canada, is a professional wrestler, a broadcaster, an author, and also a very interesting chap, the outlaw, if you will, Adam Knight. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
This is exciting. It's going great. We're doing great, man. I don't know. Normally I try to, when I do interviews in the past, I tried to make it proper, a little proper. Like sure. I was a deviant Charlie Rose to sit down, to put it bluntly. But I'm drinking tonight. Sure. I might say a swear word, and I'm going to get to know you over this conversation. How's Canada?
Canada's good right now. We've just finished our summer season here in central Canada, which means we're suddenly going to no longer be the hottest ass place in the entire planet, and it's going to quickly turn into the coldest ass place on the planet, give or take 6 weeks. So, like, we legit just had plus 40 degrees Celsius weather, and I did a wrestling show in the middle of that for a fair on September the 2nd.
Okay.
But probably by the time I turn 47 in November, we will be hovering around Hoth.
Let's see. And first of all, God bless your country, because I know you just went through and maybe still are battling. I got to be honest, I haven't followed the stories. Some of those wildfires, historic in nature. Forgot about that. So God bless Canada, or God save the king. What? I don't know. Who's on your money now?
It's a king now. Lord knows the guy that's trying to run for the right-wing prime ministership would like to be a king, but we'll talk about that another time. We don't need to get all political here.
We might. You and I are. We're in the same calendar age of a calendar year of age, and I love that. Oh, before we forget, I do want to do proper, because the broadcaster in me won't stop. And I'm okay with that. We're going to get into a lot of pro wrestling talk tonight, but it might go to places about life, the universe, and everything. Some funny stories, but also I want to talk about you as a man who's gone through changes and struggles, and where you are, because that's a lot of what you and I have connected on. And I'm going to let you talk more than me just rambling right now. Don't you worry. But you're an author. This is the first in a series of books. Adam Knight's Cowboy Ending, book 1 of Overdrive. You sent this to me. I've read every word.
Did. Have you?
No, I haven't.
I didn't think so. Because reviews are a big part of any sort of content creator's outlet. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I would have seen, Ken Napzok with the 2-star review. That would have been nice. Bad reviews are good reviews too, but it's all right. And you've got the first book there. I do actually have the third book right here. It is actually the only copy I have left right now. The rest are all available on Amazon.com.
Look, you put yourself over. What is this series about? And I do have it. And you sent us a copy, us being me, Jason Skirmisher, and Jennifer Miranda. When I'm done reading damn Star Wars books, I'm going to read this. What's it about?
Oh, man. It's a funny thing. Like, you get an idea in your head when you're a young man that you're going to tell funny stories that are, big and broad. And like, I grew up much like you, reading a lot of like Tolkien and high fantasy and stuff. And then my tastes broadened over time, right? Obviously, I'm also into, not to talk about any struck companies, but superheroic. And I also like my mystical adventures and things. But I couldn't write crap like that because I couldn't connect to it as a creator. So what I ended up doing is I started, broadening my reading tastes. And I discovered that urban fantasy was a thing, was a genre. right?
Okay,
So
okay, but what is it? Sexy men and chaps. Is that where it starts?
well, that's what I do in the ring. We'll talk about that later if you want. We're talking about my books now, Ken. Let's not
Fair,
cross the streams just
fair.
yet. It's all good. No, and
I'll cross your
I'm
streams.
not. I'm not bringing up my chaps tonight. Okay, yeah, I don't care that you're drinking. You don't have any fins to slide into my. Anyways, uh, my books are about a
Mhm.
guy named Joe, not Joseph. Sorry, his name is Joe, and he's a hard nosed luck bouncer who is dealing with a lot of personal and emotional strife. He's taking care of his ailing mother. He can't seem to get the bills taken care of. He's got a lot of personal loss in his life. And somewhere along the way, he gets involved in an incident that nearly kills him. But in the recovery process, it unlocks an electrical impulse within him. So I crib from a lot of sources. I loved concepts of The Flash as a TV show, not a TV show, like from the 90s with John Wesley Shipp. I like a lot of stuff about that. I like the idea of doing an urban fantasy supernaturally type show that is no vampires, no zombies, no magic. So I try to make all of my adventures, all of my protagonists, when they're a little bit above and beyond the norm, have some element of pseudosciency bullshittery, because like that's sort of what I think is. I think that's the lane that not a lot of people in the genre go for.
Yeah.
Where everyone's always like, and now we've got all these demons from hell that are coming out, and here comes the wizard who actually works as a PI. Which, by the way, I love those books by Jim Butcher. But for me, I wanted something where it's like I wanted a character that I could relate to, a guy who had struggles personally, couldn't get a date, had body shame issues, had a whole bunch of other stuff that made him stand out from like the look at my 12 pack and I'm now going to
Yeah.
be a druid from 1,000 years ago. I wanted a guy. I just wanted a guy
God.
who, when push came to shove, would do the right thing, whether it benefited him or not. So
See,
yeah, yeah.
this is a great tale. You know what? It's a suburban Jedi. How about that?
Let's go with that. I like that. I'm a suburban Jedi. Yes,
Suburban Jedi.
but I'll take that. That's in case you haven't noticed. I'm more than happy to write 70, 80, 90,000 words in a book. But if
Yeah.
you want me to break it down to a bullet point,
You, look, it's the hardest
get the
thing.
fuck out.
Yeah,
It's the hardest thing. I
query.
cannot blurb.
Yeah, trying to sell a book. You write a cool. And you're
Mhm.
like, cool. They're like, could you do a one sheet to kind of summarize and sell yourself? It's like I fail miserably.
Yeah, it's like I try to go like it's like Lee Child meets Jim Butcher, and people go, that makes no sense. I'm like, you're right, it doesn't, but that's kind of what I was shooting for.
No, I love this. This is great, and I'm intrigued to finally get to it. And by the way, I appreciate you upholding my support of the SAG-AFTRA and
No,
WGA strikes by not promoting struck companies. It's noted. However, anytime I move on camera here, we get to see a poster of a space movie signed by Alan Ladd Jr.
which if you look over here, you can very clearly see
Yes.
the shelf that has my daughter's Legos and other stuff on it, so it's okay.
This is a great jumping off point for the conversation because you're talking about a character who is
Yeah.
a strong man, all the things that are supposed to come with that. But you're talking about it right now. He's dealing with things across all sides. He's trying to uphold whatever that image might be or what he thinks that he might need to be. He's got some body shame issues. He got some aches and pains, and he's not sure of himself. How much of that is coming from your soul?
It's funny because I've had more than enough people look at me and go, "You wrote this about you," and the answer is kinda. It's
Yeah,
like
sure.
yeah, kinda, sure. Like it's the whole right what you know thing is a reality. It's
Hmm.
real, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
more of myself I could infuse into my character, then the more he stood out as a person. It didn't just feel like, and then so and so walked into the bar and then a fight breaks out. It's like I wanted this guy's pain to feel like somebody going, "Oh God, I've been there," or "I know somebody who's been there," or "I know what's going on," right?
Yeah.
Like so, it's that's not to say that the book doesn't have high fantasy action where he's kicking all kinds of ass and doing interesting things, but I want that to be
Thank you.
the icing on the cake of my story. So
Yeah.
it's all right. There's some angst, there's some difficulties, there's some
Mhm.
unrequited love, if you will. There's a lot of stuff. So it's
Sounds
like
like
I
uh,
yeah.
sounds like you were raised in the '80s and early '90s, like me.
you almost could say that. Yes, yes, yes. It's not the story at all of a guy who got beat up a lot when he was younger and fatter, and then grew into a more hulking frame as he got older. So yeah, no, it's fun. I love the process of writing. It's hard and it's long. I've never been one of those guys where this is a segue where it's like I'm going to write 20 minutes a day and see what happens. I'm
Oh,
usually a once I start pushing that rock up the hill in the Sisypheus fashion, it's at the top, and I'm like, I better clear my calendar for 6 weeks because that's
hmm.
when it's all pouring out of me.
I yeah, yeah, or you've gone to fast food. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. And I don't know. There's now 3 books in the series, right?
I've got 3 books in the series. I'm working on the fourth, and I wrote an in-world novella that's also available. Not a novella, like moderately length short story that's in the world.
Look at you.
That takes place after the third book. Yeah, it sounds like an achievement, but I wrote the first book and had it published before my daughter was born, and she just turned 10. So let's not applaud me for my
Look,
prolificness.
look. There's a guy. He wrote a series about dragons and fantasy and knights and White Walkers. We're still waiting for his next book. It's
I mean, when the TV series is done before your series of written books is, you're just
yeah.
double dipping at this point. Right?
Well, once let's settle this strike, and then we can option Overdrive, the new streaming show, where you'll get all the residuals. I'm sure.
Brother, I would be more than happy to come on down there and do pitch meetings, and by that I mean, here's my book, please, 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 please,
It's
please, please.
it's
I
a
got
thing.
I,
Hey.
I got a
But
divorce to pay for. Help me out. Sorry.
how long does that take?
At the rate I'm going.
Times 5. Yeah.
Anyways,
I know, but what I was saying is I like knowing that there's many different ways to finish a creative project or even get it started or even work on it.
mhm.
Because I've thought I've unlocked it.
Yeah,
And I this is how I write a screenplay. This is how I do it. It's easy. All you need to do is X, Y, and Z. And then that works for that one, but that didn't work for the next
yeah,
one. It didn't work for the next sketch or even a song or a poem or anything I've written. And you do want to find the mechanical side of it. Do want to find the structured side of creativity. That's the difference between pro and amateur. But
yeah.
even then, it's hard to harness sometimes.
I mean, like I have had this conversation with other people before, whether they're like amateur writers like me or like semi people that are under contract, and it's like
Hold on,
not
you've
everybody's
sold.
going to be.
Have you ever received a cent for one of these?
I've done quite well. Yes, that's fine.
Then you're
That
then
first book I
then
did very well. You're correct. I
I'm
am.
talking to
It's
King.
you know what I'm
Pro
saying though,
wrestler.
right? It's like it's yeah, like I've been a professional wrestler for 25 years, but I still just call myself a wrestler because it's not how I make my mortgage payments most of the time. So
That's fair.
you know what I
That's
mean.
fair.
So you know what I'm saying, right? It's like I got a day job and it blows, but I'm doing what I can with it. So
You know.
where was I going? But yeah, like process, right? You know, like I'm
Mhm.
not James Patterson. I'm not going to sit there with my outline for four
Yep.
books and like be able to bang them off and
Yep.
formulate them. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're super popular. People love them.
Right.
That's just not me. I'm more seat of my pants ish, which is not quite true. I have an outline, but whatever.
Yeah. No. I
Uh,
look. No. I love this a lot here. Let's get into. I tasted it up top. We have technically. I wouldn't describe it as met, but we
no,
have done the math. We have been in the same room together.
that's right.
Just didn't know.
We've been at yeah we have been at the Gold Coast Casino at the same time for one of those fantastic 70-year-old stanky cigarette smelling ballrooms, watching some really old timers receive glad handing awards at
Yeah.
the Cauliflower Alley Club. And let me tell you, that
Hmm.
is not
Hmm.
to diminish it in any way. I love the CAC. I love what it stands for. I love the fact
Yep.
that anytime I've paid dues, it's gone to help men and women who are
Hmm.
struggling, unable to pay their bills at different stages of their life. I think it's an incredible organization. It's got some
Hmm.
problems, but every organization has some problems. That's why it's an organization. But I've loved it. I've loved going down there, and I do think it's funny that you and I have both been in Vegas at the same time. It just ships in a night because I hadn't started listening to some of your work, and why the fuck would you know who I was? So it's all right.
And vice versa. There's especially
Sure.
in a wrestling thing. Even though I've been in and out of the pro wrestling world since 2000, in terms of being a
Yeah.
manager and an occasional booker and blah 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 blah. Um, Yeah, but no, I was a member. My friend Dan Farron encouraged me to join. Dan is a longtime wrestling personality locally here in LA and other
Yeah,
regions and a comic and storyteller. And I was like, yeah, and we all went. We had our company that we were all involved with, Millennium Pro Wrestling. We'd all head out there. I think
yeah.
from like 2013 to like 2019, I didn't miss a year. And so,
Nice.
yeah, and I saw you come in number two on a battle royal. Didn't even know it till
Oh
this
yeah.
moment tonight.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was a good time. That was a good time. Like I was telling you before, it was my second CAC. I want to say 14 or 15, whatever it was. I was there, and Johnny Devine, who was going over in the thing, as a former TNA X Division champion, is a good friend of mine. Helped me get a lot of opportunities early on. He begged me to stick around to get into the Rumble because there's 50 guys in it, and he feared for his life, and he was probably right to do so. So it was a good time. Good time standing there and wondering if that ring was going to hold the 15 tons of humanity that was cluster fucking to a symphony of silence. I'll tell you, it was. I said it. I said it, fellas. Don't pretend that everybody gave a shit. Nobody did.
No, it did. They were all either
Oh, nobody did.
on the way to the buffet or had come from it. And it was always the
Oh,
first
those
night.
buffets.
Yeah, it was the first
Yeah.
night at Gold Coast there. Usually, an old wrestling colleague of mine, I don't know him too well. We went to high school together. We didn't know that till years later in a wrestling locker room. We found that out. Billy Blade would have put on a lot of
Oh,
these
yeah.
shows, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I know Billy.
Billy, yeah, and yeah, it's fascinating. I just love that there. I want to get into some wrestling stories. I want to get to life lessons from wrestling and all that stuff. But
Sure.
first, I've got to stop off on something. This is just inside baseball talk. The Gold Coast Casino, uh,
Love it.
one of the shittiest casino and hotels
Yes.
I've ever been in, and therefore it's my favorite. I talked about this on a hurricane.
I,
You're
oh,
with me.
I not only am I with you, I listened to it and I smiled immediately because I'm not gonna lie, my very first time going to Vegas was for the CAC, and I showed up at the Gold Coast. Let me tell you, I'm from central Canada, which is like basically the planet that it's farthest from, and I
Right.
get out at the airport. There you go, and take the cab in, and I drive down the strip, and I'm looking at all these fantastic places, and there's Caesar's Palace, and oh my God, there's the Luxor and all this other cool crap, and then we pull up to the Gold Coast. I'm like, oh.
Oh, oh, that's
But
what.
I loved it because it was like, oh, this suits this environment, this
Yep.
suits this convention, and it was dirt cheap, so I couldn't argue that
Well,
point either, right?
yeah, that was always the clue, right? It's like, man, I got a great room for 55 a night. That was the first,
Oh,
even as
yeah, that was your first. That was your hint.
I encourage anyone who's listening, while you're listening, unless you're driving, Google Gold Coast Casino Las Vegas. You'll see the pictures. You'll get it right away. And
Oh yeah,
I love Las Vegas. I go a lot. I can't wait to get back. Look. I've stayed at the Venetian. I've been inside the Wynn. I've Paris Hotel. I've been to the toppermost of the poppermost. Like I said recently, there's just
nice.
nothing that can replace walking into a hotel and casino, smelling the cigarette smoke from the parking structure,
Oh, it's
and then you get
gross.
in there
It's so
and
gross.
they're all it's and all the stereotypes. I don't mean to poke fun at people because that's not what I'm
No,
about in terms of like body types and age and physical abilities. But you walk in and every cliche about Las Vegas you've heard in hacky stand-up jokes is in the checkout line in front of you or right there
oh, it's amazing.
at the slots.
It's amazing. You know what? I loved it. I'm glad. I mean, I know they're not there anymore, and they moved on, I think, to the Rio, but
Mhm.
maybe not the Rio.
No,
Is it
they're
the
on
Rio just
Fremont.
across the
They're
street?
they're 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 at Fremont.
Oh, they moved to Fremont?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's probably even better. But I loved it because it looked like the type of place I expected Vegas to be when I watched and read all those old books and movies when I was a kid. Right? It's like, oh, this tracks. This tracks. I don't need the fountains of the Bellagio. I need this place. Or,
You
looks like
you
some
know
crap has gone down.
yeah, no, it looks like we're like one of those movies where like the old pit boss is like this town used to be glamorous and glitz and the mob ran it and it's now this. It's now the Gulch.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I loved it. I love it.
or
It's
yeah,
great.
even though they shot I think most of Swingers in Riviera, at least outside, it's like that blackjack scene in Riviera in Swingers where like the old lady wins. I got it. That's the Gold Coast through and through.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Completely.
did you ever hang out there in that Fridays at like 2 a.m. with like Jim Ross telling war stories?
The best.
Greg the Hammer
The
Valentine
best.
sitting there with his fanny pack on.
At least he had his pants on. It was that Fridays was great. I remember this is really Canadian of me. I was down there. The last time I was down there was when my local hockey team, the Winnipeg Jets, were taking on the Vegas Knights in the Stanley Cup playoffs
Right.
at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first year that the Knights were actually in the league too. So whenever that was, it was the last time I was there.
Years. Yeah.
But I remember just how this has got nothing to do with anything. But I remember how crazy Vegas was for hockey, which in my brain made no sense, but I loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah.
As I'm walking around Vegas with my Winnipeg Jets jersey on, I might as well have just said, "Hey guys, come on, give me your best shot." Wasn't as bad as the time I did that in Philly, but that's okay. I survived that too.
Yeah, but if they're doing it in Vegas, they're probably drunk. Yeah, no, my cousin lives out there. Yeah, her and her family, they went crazy for the nights out there. When did you start wrestling? You said 25 years. So by the time I moved to LA, you were taking your first bumps.
Let me see. I graduated high school in 1994. I started university that year. Met a bunch of guys in a fraternity that, honestly, Canadian fraternities are a waste of time, but mostly fraternities are a waste of time, in my opinion. Sorry, everybody from Alpha Kappa, fuck yourself. I don't care. Sorry.
Fascinated about the Canadian one.
Sorry. So it was like I met a couple of guys there that were into it, and I hadn't really, I was like everybody else. I'd sort of not really watched wrestling for a while. I was sort of, go figure. And what was it? I met a couple of guys who were interested. They found out there was something in the local scene, which I hadn't even know that was a thing. It was like, I watched the AWA when I was a kid. That turned into the WWF. I saw a little bit of the NWA when it would show up on satellite, and that was it. Then it sucked for a while, and I got away from it. And because I was in a unique position where university wasn't really floating my boat, I didn't feel fulfilled in like the theater classes I was taking, and I had a unique desire to punish myself. It seemed pretty appropriate to get into a ring with a bunch of guys who were not really well known or going anywhere and get the bejesus kicked out of me for the next. Well, that was 95. What year is it now? I'm pushing 30 years to be honest. So
that's
not including 2 years of no COVID. So, yeah.
Yeah, you deserve a CAC Lifetime Achievement Award. We'll get you nominated.
Well, maybe if I accomplish anything worth talking about, we can talk about that. But no, honestly, right now it's just I thank my lucky stars that I've only got a couple of documented concussions. My legs still work, and I haven't broken my neck. So I'm just gonna keep an eye on that stuff.
I feel it, man. I feel it. No, I've not been in the ring as much as you, 0.00000% compared to you, but the pain can be real. Yeah. Do you find one of my fascinating things about where you and I are maybe as people and men these days? This is one of those men conversations. Wrestling's tough. Wrestling has to be tough. Not unlike, say, the military or some of those tougher jobs. Even a police academy might be tough. But that breeds a lot of maybe history has proven a lot of unnecessary aggression, violence, anger, the good old fashioned toxic stuff. But at the same time, I understand where it comes from and why it's sometimes needed in a business like that, where trust, brothership, sistership, kinship, community, safety, clash with egos and violence. It's a weird thing. Where are you at with that relationship now, and where were you along the way?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So when I broke in, you have to remember, it was before the Montreal screw job.
Yeah.
So in the Indies, we were still dealing with, protect the business at all costs, because those 45 to 60 people on a regular basis that were showing up really were coming because they believed that we were really fighting. Right. And so there's a lot of that. So that was a lot of it. Protect the business. Honest to God, I've had so many years to try to think about this. And again, I've been in locker rooms now since 95. So I've gone from being the young guy sitting at the feet of the old men, who honestly were probably like 35, to be honest with you. But, thinking about it now. Right. And now
when I first walked into a locker room, the veteran guy who was like the king of the castle, and he eventually passed away. When he passed away, I learned I was 5 years older than him. But I thought this ancient wizard on the hill who will teach us everything.
Well, I think about it now. I was considered a veteran at 25 because at that point in time I'd done it for
Yeah.
8 years, and I had my 500 matches, and I'd been a few places, and I'd got to work with a couple of people, and so it was all right.
Mhm.
But now it's like, oh God, like, it's like, as long as at this point in time the young kids don't look at me and go, "Why are you still here? Why are you taking a spot from us?
Yeah.
Why are you stinking up the joint, old man?" So it's like, yeah, that's different. So to answer your question that I have not yet done,
It's all right.
no, it's okay. It's not an easy answer, I don't think, because there are too many people that get into it today and for the duration of my time that don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Right? They think it's a show. They think it's a game. They think they can come on in and they can,
Mm-hmm.
do whatever they want. And because it's a show, that we'll all go along with it because they're so awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
while I don't believe in beating the business into people, I do believe in reminding them, hey, we're trusting you with our bodies, we're trusting you with our health, we're trusting you with our lives and our livelihood in some cases, right? So it's like, you don't get to come on in and treat this like a joke. You will pay dues. You will set up and tear down this ring. You will take your 100 bumps. And if you don't like it, we will chop the bejesus out of you until you smarten the hell up.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that because I did all that. I still do it. And I'll never, the way I was taught from the guys I respected the most were the ones who would say, I'll never give you anything that I wouldn't take myself.
Yeah.
It was always the ones who would take liberties. And, well, we talked a little bit about that off air, and we don't need to harp on it. But I've never respected that, right? It's like, yeah, I'm not going to assault a guy, but I'll let him know it's coming.
Yeah. No, but if I mean, I'm so interested in your perspective on it as someone who's coming up on 30 years, really in it on a base.
Where's my walker?
I know. When I say it out loud, you probably broke. You still have a ton of time left in the world to make our mark.
I do.
But the business will take us all. No, like because I'll just put that phrase out there that causes so much consternation in people, but the toxic masculinity, right? Which is such a misunderstood word, and it's such a misused and maybe both directions of conversation. This is why I love that movie about an action figure doll that well, I guess not an action figure in my heart. Barbie's an action figure, but I'll just say it. I'm not going to be cute with it. The Barbie movie. I can't wait for the strikes to end because I can't wait to deep dive into that movie about what it's saying about so many things. A lot of it just about life, but about men in our own prisons. But then something like wrestling, I'm with you there. I would love to have the nuanced conversation of the famous story of Hulk Hogan, in perhaps one of the only true stories about him that he's told, showing up and his trainer breaks his leg again, allegedly.
Sure.
And says, you come back if you want it. And he does, right? I don't want that. I don't think that's right.
No.
I don't think it's necessary.
No.
But my experiences of walking in and seeing, going into a restaurant and seeing the leader of the pack, the guy I was actually talking about, point to a table and telling the two greenfoots there, you sit over there because you haven't earned this table. Even that's harsh, but I just remember thinking, that's kind of how life is, and that's kind of needed. And I'm trying to find.
Oh, sorry. To me, those are two separate things, right? Like if we're talking toxic masculinity, like you get enough of that with guys who, when the guys I meet who get into wrestling and do it for long enough where their whole identity circles around it, like their time in the ring, their time in the locker room, their time in the gym, their time on the road, their lives like that, I think that leads to a lot more toxic masculinity because it leads to resentment. Because much like any aspect of the entertainment industry, and yes, that's what this is, the level of success that's achievable for most people is pretty much a donut egg or donut hole. Anyways, I've been hitting that.
Tell you what, I want there to be a donut egg out there.
I would like a donut egg. I want the protein of the donut egg. Anyways, that's there. Come on, Krispy Kreme, give me a donut egg. Yeah. But what I mean though is, you get. It usually comes from resentment or from jealousy, right? Why is this person getting that and I'm not? I'm better than this guy. I'm better looking than that guy. I should have got that spot and not. And then it just turns into like wicked games and bullshit. And hurt feelings, and that's when their ego gets wrapped up in it. But in the same time, I am a very big component of making people earn their spots, and I'm not saying in a negative way.
Yeah.
I just had guys. I just did a show a couple weeks ago. It was a fundraising show. That's not important, but there's a bunch of new guys around that if I was the one breaking them in, which I am not anymore,
Mm-hmm.
I would have kicked them out of my class.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they're bad kids, but because they put in no effort to look a certain way, to act a certain way, to put in any effort, right? As a result of that, if they're in the locker room with me, it's like, get your shit off my table.
Mm-hmm.
Go sit over there.
Mm-hmm.
This is my spot. If you want to come over here, you're going to be respectful and you're going to talk to me, and then you're going to leave. And I don't do that. Ken, I'm not a bad guy, but I want them to understand I've earned my spot here, and you guys are trying to get you guys are trying to get. You're trying to talk to like the vice president of the company as if he's your pal that you're going to go golfing with.
Yeah.
And I realize that sounds very egotistical, but I'm right. And I want them to respect the fact that I've put in my time. I've paid my dues. You can talk shit about me over there if you don't like my attitude, but you're never going to come to my spot and take it away from me until I'm ready to give it up or ready to share it with you because you've earned it.
Yeah.
I've eaten so much shit in fucking 25 plus years of wrestling from people who have made it and done shit, and also from a lot of guys who never got out of the goddamn perimeter of the city of Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time for people who aren't willing to put in the effort or show the respect.
Yeah, I think that's where it comes from. And knowing you in the quite frankly brief few minutes that I've got to know you beyond just an instant message here, you're not holding on to power. You're not holding on to your position. You are about generational change. You are about passing it on. But there's something about them having to not earn it. You're saying earn it, and I say earn it, but it's not from a maniacally ego-driven point of view. No. It's like, this is how this goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you're going to JBL someone and lock them in a closet and say, dress out there. I don't know if I agree with that, but who knows what the Miz did, you know.
Guys kind of, whatever.
You know, yeah. But it's fast. No, and go ahead.
I'm just going to say, like, damn this distance thing. It's in my whole career, I've always said, especially now that I'm in the position I'm in, I will let anyone else beat me if they've earned the right to.
Yeah.
Right. If they've put in the work and they've put in the time and they've got a connection with the people, absolutely. Despite the fact that I'm probably a half foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than them, I'll make it work.
You put them over.
But they have to. Yes, I will put them over. But they've got to prove that they've earned it on some level. Right,
and got to make sense, right? And, you know, the old
got to make sense.
It's
got to make sense.
I think of the Stone Cold Steve Austin has a lot of demons, but he also knows the business and knows the old business and the new. I think, but that famous story of back in the day with Brock, I'm not going to put him over on a Monday night for free. That's not good for all of us.
No. You left millions of dollars on the table with that. Yeah. And it was clearly a punishment. Like he was, maybe he didn't handle it correctly, but it was clearly a punishment of some kind, right? So,
what? Who were you 25 years ago in the wrestling locker rooms and rings, and who are you now?
Oh, that's a good question. 25 years ago, I was a scared 13-year-old kid in the body of an 18-year-old man. I was 335 skinny fat pounds of pimply, Jiffy Pop haired craziness.
Jiffy Pop.
I was. Oh no! Like I've got it nicely taken care of here. But back then, I didn't know what hair product was. I didn't realize that I had curly hair, and I was fighting it. So I was like the big old Irish afro when I wasn't paying attention to it. But back then, I was a scared, heartbroken little boy who was lost and felt like he was a failure. And I've said this in other mediums, other places, but pro wrestling wasn't my first love, but it was the first thing that I loved that I felt was loving me back, even if it was a tough love. So it was the one thing in my life that I felt was giving me a kick in the ass that I needed to have at like 18, 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I felt like I could not achieve, but I wanted to try. If that makes any sense. Because, I was a super nerd in school. I was good at like all that shit. But then I got to university and completely fell apart because I had no focus or direction. I didn't know how to work hard.
Mhm.
Wrestling taught me how to work hard,
Did that
and
work?
it taught me that life isn't fair.
Right. You got to sit in that booth because you haven't earned the big table. Did that what you talk about university? Did that come from you being a good student, bit of maybe not an overachiever, but just I'm fascinated with that angle of life sometimes where I was such a good little student. I was a good little boy in elementary school,
Mhm.
and I
Oh, I
was
know that one.
smart. And I was in the gate, which was the gifted and talented whatever, and they'd pull me out of class
Mhm.
because I was one of the smarter kids, and we don't want to be with the plebeians. And I'm not saying a program like that is bad, but it taught me that I didn't have to try as hard, that I could rely on I'm
Ah,
smarter than others. And by the time I started graduating high school and depression kicked in, it set me up for what I still battle to this day. This interview, I was like, I really need to do this interview with Adam, and you and I were going back and forth over a couple of days. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know, maybe you'll just push it off the next week. And it's like, no, in my head, I'm like, no, I got to do this. I don't want to
yeah.
underachieve anymore. And I think that set in early, and something like wrestling coming along and maybe kicking your ass a little bit. I can see where that's a good thing.
Well, again, it's like we live different lives, except you were in like California and I was up freezing my balls off. But it was.
My beach was pretty cold in Pismo. Okay,
I'm sure it was very windy.
there was
I'm
a
sure it was
sh-
very windy
there was a,
on that palm tree.
there was a shrivel flat.
And it was,
Pine trees. We had pine trees on our beach. All right.
my balls didn't drop until I was 26. It was so cold. Anyway, the point is that this is never airing. So
No, it is airing, but right now
no, no, it's all right. It's all
only
right.
Robbie Smith is listening.
It's like bleep, bleep,
Yep.
bleep, bleep. No, it's what is, but I was much the same. Like I was in the enrichment program when I was in elementary school, which is the
Yeah.
same thing.
Okay.
It's like it's like oh yeah, Jeff. My shoot name is Jeff. Yeah, Adam Knight. But he and his friends are crushing this. Or better communicating. So we're going to pull them out and have them do logic puzzles and like more
Mhm.
in-depth reading and stuff, which is basically an excuse for us to do sweet FA for a couple of hours and then come back to class,
Right.
right? And all it did was, I think, alienate me from the kids that were struggling, and they took it out on me, which is true. I was the short, fat kid, and I was
Mm.
a whiny baby. But I also, I don't know. So then I got to, I know it's funny you say like a depression. I never thought about that,
Mm.
but that's not a bad way to say it, because I know that I got to grade 12 and I was shit scared.
Mm.
Like, because my whole life up to that point, it was, get good grades. I didn't really have to work all that hard at it. You know, I was under all kinds of pressure from my mother, anyways, to go to university, be the first member of our family to go and graduate and do all that stuff.
Mm.
And I wanted to, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, which I'm going to be 47. I'm still not sure what I want to do, Ken. I'm just sort of trying to figure it out day by day, right?
Yeah.
But that's a lot of pressure for a kid who's like 16 in grade 12, going to graduate and not even be able to legally drink in Canada. So it was a
Mm.
lot. So
This is a
so
very
yeah,
yeah. No, finish your thought. Sorry, I cut you off.
I'll go. I know I'm good.
Oh, this is a very, very important side question. Why in Canada do you say grade 12 when really it's 12th grade? I've been dying to know this since Bruce McCullough released his comedy album where he sang about being in grade 8.
Well, because we're part of the Commonwealth and we actually know how to speak English up here.
Oh,
Okay, but if you ask any of my extended relatives that are actually from
Mhm.
the old country, they'd probably say, "Oh no, I'm sorry. What you do for your language there is very much you. Those in the colonies have definitely not done a very good job of educating you in the proper verbiage and your grammar and pish posh and where's my tea."
The king would be very upset there, very upset.
He'd be so annoyed. Where's my corgi?
So now you're 18, 19. You're taking your lumps in wrestling. You make a joke, and I make the joke too, but it's real because it hurts. I know what I want to do. There's wonderful things I do and do achieve, and you've got books, and they're complete and they're long, and they've got 70,000 words in them. You've accomplished things. You have a daughter. You've
I have.
accomplished things. What is it? I want to jump ahead. This feels like the blathering now for real, where you just made me think about something. We're the same age,
Okay.
essentially. Um, the idea of going, did I fuck this up?
Oh God.
Hangs over me every day. I have to fight through it every day. anytime I start a new project or lean in or go, hey, I'm gonna interview Adam Knight tonight. Did I fuck this up? Not the interview, but my choice to do something else 25 years ago.
It's funny. When I got into wrestling, I didn't tell my parents because I didn't want them to be disappointed in me.
Yeah.
I kept them from them for most of a year because that is one thing that I definitely felt my whole life, that I was a disappointment to my parents, which is ridiculous in retrospect, right? And I can admit that now, and we've had those conversations, and I know that it's just was all in my head, right? But it's because I didn't feel like I was connected to my dad very much, and I felt like my mom was pushing me really hard, and I just look at that and go, well, yeah, they were pushing me really hard, and I didn't feel connected to my dad, but I look back at it now and I just go, well, that was just me figuring out who the fuck I was, and it took me a long time to do it. So I remember when I finally told them, like, my plan is I'm going to wrestle until I'm 25, and I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. I'll get out. And the truth was, I wasn't really getting anywhere, but I was making really good progress, and I knew I was doing better, so I kept at it. But that is when I did go back to college and I got my communications degree. Not that I'm using it now, but I got it, and that was important because I was
here today, buddy.
Thank you so much. As I actually got into thinking I would get into radio, and it didn't work out. But but I got out of it. I worked in TV for a couple of years, which is nice, and I have to dust off my video edit skills that I learned there. But it was my point is that, again, I did a few years of wrestling, and that taught me what I didn't want in life. It also taught me that no matter how hard I worked at wrestling, my odds of succeeding were small. So I needed to have I needed to have an education. And so by that time, I also knew that I wasn't going to just go to university, or I wasn't going to go to college and pick up like a construction trade. So I got into something that I was interested in, something that I felt that I could translate some skills for. And that communication, radio, TV, broadcasting, a little bit of advertising. I got a PR major in a 2-year program, but whatever. But what that taught me more than anything else was the ability to start a project and finish a project.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It also taught me not to be precious about things. When you're doing a journalism class where it's like, you have to, if they give you an assignment, it's due that day. Mm-hmm. And if you make a spelling mistake, it's an automatic failure, because that's what it should be in journalism. Yeah. Not that you see that these days with, clicks and TikToks and bullshit, but back in the good old days of 2001, when, the print newspaper was still kind of important, that was an important thing. And you learn not to be precious. Learn not to be precious. Like, you got 500 words and I need it by 10 o'clock. Shit. Okay. It's like, it's good enough. Does it say what it needs to say? Done. Move on. Done. Let it go. Right. And so, yeah, you'll fuck up a few times, but those are important things. And they taught, I got bigger projects out of that. And this is, of course, the famous Red River College Creative Communications program that, let me tell you, going and following in the footsteps of other famous alumni. Yeah. Chris Jericho was no fun when you're a pro wrestler, right? An indie pro wrestler. Like, oh, you know Chris? I'm like, yes. Yeah. I know who he is. We've never met at that point, but I'm well aware. And, oh, are you going to do Mexico like he is? No, I'm not. I just,
just trying to get a.
Could you just grade my paper, Barb?
No, that's a fascinating thing, and at what point, jumping to where you and I might be now? Okay. Where along the way do you stop and tell yourself, I need to be kind to myself? And what are you kind about? That's what I'm struggling with a lot.
This last year, I've really made a better effort to do that. And not that long ago, I was burning that candle at like 4 ends, where I would just like take the candle and throw it in the fire, and I'd say, I'll be fine. I would tell my friends and family, my loved ones, don't worry, I'm indestructible. I'll keep moving, right? And, watching my father slowly pass away, dealing with some marital strife that ultimately ended up dissolving our union, which was horrible and difficult and still an ongoing thing today. But I realized that I was doing so much for other people that I wasn't taking care of myself, right? And a lot of that, we had 2 years of lockdown, and that was tough on everybody, and it was hard, trying to help co-parent my daughter and working midnights, and I can't get any stress relief by wrestling. It's not an environment where I feel conducive to writing. Right. So I couldn't even get that part out. And the gyms were closed for half of that time, so I couldn't even go in and bang on any iron. Like I spent a fortune to buy 100 pounds worth of weights on a barbell, and it cost me like $400. But
Yeah.
like fuck, I was going to train at home. I couldn't get away from home. I
Yeah.
needed the gym so I could get out of the house for a bit. Like as soon as they were opening up, there I am at 5 o'clock in the morning when the gyms were open, wearing a mask, waiting in line, trying to be one of the 30 people that can get in for my hour so I can go to work for 7 when I was back on days by then. But yeah, it
Mm.
was. I
Yeah.
realized a lot of things. Like, oh god, I don't even know where to go with this one. But at the
It's
end of the day, I realized I had to start, and I'm still working on it today. Stop doing things because I feel like I should, and to do the things because I feel like I want to.
mm,
Because if I do them because I want to do it, then they'll bring me joy, and I won't resent them. Whether that is the gym,
mm,
writing, spending time with my daughter, spending time with my family, um,
mm, mm.
trying to get booked, just wrestling. When wrestling started feeling like a chore, I was like, "Oh my god, what the fuck am I doing?"
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was those were signs that nothing in my life was working. So,
Yeah.
but here we are now, and it's an ongoing thing, and it's a day to day process. Ken, you know that as well as anybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I just spent. Let's keep talking about the stigma. I did a year of sessions with a therapist, which was good, and not a
Recently?
super in depth. No, I
Okay.
just finished my year, which was good. So,
Mhm.
insurance is a wonderful thing, and that helped me
Yeah.
out. Just to have that extra person to talk to and get some ideas from, and
Mhm.
just to have somebody who I'm not related to or involved with being able to say things to me like, "You're not a bad person,
Mm.
and it's okay to have these thoughts, and it's okay to have these struggles."
Yeah.
And it's okay to put yourself first every once in a while. Not all the time. I'm a
Yeah.
giving dude, and I'm willing to help my friends and family all the time if needed. But
Mhm.
even little things where it's like, yeah, I will do this interview, Ken, because I've been wanting to talk to you forever, and it'll make me feel good to connect with somebody that I've got a good. I feel like I've been your friend for 3 years longer, and this is the first time we've actually spoken, right? But it's something that is. I'm doing it because it makes me feel better to talk about myself, to talk with you, and to have those kind of connections.
Yeah.
Like little things like that. Little things like changing my workout routine so it's not a punishing have to do it
Yeah.
6 days a week sort of thing where it's like maybe just don't eat like a bag of shit and train a little
Mm.
harder for a little less time and feel better like so everything doesn't hurt. Like when the gym became punishment and not self improvement, I'm like I am on the wrong side of this. For
Ooh.
examples,
Ooh, that's an amazing little insight there. Um,
yeah,
it related to you're talking about gym, and I relate to that too, where, like, there's a good chance this interview ends tonight and I go to Del Taco. We'll see. But maybe I deserve that, maybe I don't. But the idea of that's a way we sometimes look at it, right?
yeah.
And take it to the gym and pull out to other things where it's like, I must do this to myself to hurt me in some way, as opposed to what I want or what I need to, as you said, self-improve.
Well, I was convincing myself I needed it because it was my only stress release. It was the only time where I could focus and I could shut the world out and push, push, push. And I realized I was just hurting myself and I was ignoring so many things in my life that I needed to think about and I needed
Mhm.
to process. Like I said, my father was dying. Eventually, he did pass away, and that was a breaking point.
Mm,
And as it should be, I miss my dad, but it was helpful and it was his time. But
mm, mm, mm,
oh my god! And but
mhm, mm, mm.
it's getting old sucks, Ken. Getting old sucks because in your brain, in my head, despite the fact that I'm an ogre of a man who's got a loving daughter, who's got many things that he can be proud of and look back on, I can say I've got all these accomplishments. I still feel like a scared 13-year-old boy who's going to get the shit kicked out of him in the lockers and isn't going to amount to anything in his life.
It's so
You
funny.
know?
Yeah, I do know. I do know because, as I've tried to explain on shows before when it comes to stand-up comedy, it's the thing I perhaps right now love the most. There's another project I'm working on. I can't wait till everyone hears it, and I love that. It's a band project I'm working on, which is crazy to say, but
Sweet.
stand-up is the thing I love the most. But I don't allow like, I don't do it right now as much as I should because I'm
Sure.
afraid to, because when it goes bad, and I've improved a lot from when I started 20 years ago. I've improved a lot in the last year, but I'm never kind to myself about that. I never, it's like I need to go hurt myself in that comedy gym versus improve myself. And when it fails, and when I fail at it, I describe exactly what you're talking about. I'm a 13-year-old boy who looks around the room and goes, "I don't belong here," and everyone knows it, and they're just waiting to tell me. And that's what I'm trying to
Mhm.
defeat. That's the dragon I'm trying to slay.
Yeah, it's an ongoing uphill slog for looking for validation, not from the outside, but from within.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's so funny because
Mhm.
I keep coming back to wrestling with it because it's like, again, 30 years I've had 1,500 plus matches, right? It's I can do it in my sleep. Whether it's good or not is hard to say, but it's at the point where unless it's
Mhm.
like an important event, I'm not excited anymore. But I go out there and I do it, and it's something I do where I feel no matter if it's good or bad, I know the audience is going to be involved in it. They're going to be cool with it, and because Adam Knight is just a persona, it's my shell, right?
Yeah.
It's my protective barrier when I put in the hat and the chaps and I throw on some spandex and I scare a bunch of women and children. It's it's a thing that I can do
Yeah.
that gives me that sense of if I suck inside, at least on the outside, I
Mm.
feel better, and
Yeah.
I know that I can do something that is worthwhile to other people, and that's I guess it's kind of deep. I don't know, but it's
Mm. Mm.
there's something validating to it. There's something true to it too.
Yeah. No. No, no, it's no surprise that you go to that wrestling well for guidance and I mean, hell, I don't do as much anymore. I'm not as close with a lot of the friends I know from wrestling, but like I talk about life in terms of pro wrestling using all those insider terms that now people know. When I first learned the insider terms 20 years ago, no one knew one fucking word.
Ooh,
And
damn internet!
by the way, I'm still fucking bitter. When I would be, and I don't blame anyone for this. We're going a different
Mhm.
direction for a second, Ed. I don't blame anyone for this, especially some of the people running it. But when I was involved in the movie Trivia Schmodown, which was heavily
Yeah,
pro wrestling influenced as it should be,
I may have noticed
Harloff
that.
came from the never noticed came from the world as it should be. I want to be clear. I'm not faulting anyone. I want to know what you feel as a 30-year vet from pro wrestling, as it's changed and it can't go back. And I don't want wrestling to go back the way it was in some ways. But would I'd have some schmodown competitor who's been in 2 matches and will come up to me and they start being like, "Well, I'm the heel in this match, and we got the face," and everything. I'm like, "You don't fucking know that. You don't know anything about that." So get out of here. Get out of my locker room. I was so withdrawn and grumpy from Schmodown crowds. I was like, I've been through a table. What have you been through? Like, no, get out of
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, and then the women's section of the Sears catalog doesn't count of things to go through. Oh, that was mean. That was mean. It's all right.
but by the way, I'm saying I'm the asshole on it.
Oh no, no,
I'm, I'm
I don't I don't see this being any
it's
different than than guys breaking in going, I've got my next 20 years of my wrestling career mapped out in my head, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and be like, okay, buddy, let's learn how to run the ropes. Can you lock up first,
yeah,
right? And at least in the Schmodown, let me tell you, I was bitter that it shut down because I really wanted to be one of those
you would
Zoom competitors, but
have been
I
good.
would have been okay. I would have been the shits, but I would have been entertaining.
You would have
But
cut a
I
promo.
would have been all
Oh,
right.
a turn
I would have cut a
turn
promo.
promo. Oh,
Mm.
they'd show up and be like, "Hey, when do I get to go cut my promo?" I'd be like, "You don't get to cut anything."
Is Harlow's baby? He gets a pass. I think I met
But he
him
worked.
when he was still
But
a
Harloff
WWE writer.
But Harloff,
Yeah,
he worked at the WWE. Like
that's what I'm
he was
saying. He gets a pass,
yeah,
right?
and by the way, pass for everyone. And Jay
Yeah,
Washington, of course, there, and he's still working in wrestling. So it's like, yeah, that.
yeah,
But again, I'm admitting to anyone who's listening and going, I'm offended. I was the a hole. Anyway, you would have
yeah.
been good.
I mean, we all need the a holes every in life. That's as long as they're constructive and not being. Meh. Anyways,
Yeah.
where
Mhm,
were we going to
mhm.
that? We got deep, and then we
We got
talked
deep,
about movie
and then I
trivia.
got scared. I got scared, Adam. We got so deep.
We got
How much is this? You and I are of the same generation, and it's that Gen X generation, which I've been reading a lot more about lately, about what
hmm
formed us, good and bad. There's some
yeah.
thoughts of us being a pretty good generation because we're between a lot of things. We're angsty, we're cynical, and that's a shield we wear. But we're also self-starters because most of us were latchkey kids, like, or had to spend a lot of time by ourselves. I was
Oh
doing
yeah.
laundry at 12 because my mom made me. But I think we're in this weird spot where we aren't quite like my dad and I don't talk. It's also just our makeup chemically. I think my grandfather, his father, they didn't really talk. But there's
Sure.
my dad's a little bit of like when I told him that I try to maintain a vegan lifestyle because Grace is 100% vegan, and Grace never asked me to, but I started cooking,
Right.
and it tasted great, and my stomach didn't tie in knots afterwards. This sounds like a good thing. My dad didn't
There
like
you go.
make fun of me, but he was kind of like, real men eat steak. So like you had a major heart attack at 64. Like,
Yes.
so we're not that as much, but we carry that weight versus some of the newer generations that are figuring things out a little differently. And the concept of what it is to be identify as a man in this world, if you want to
Sure.
phrase it that way. It's changing rapidly, but we're stuck between. We're in, to borrow a Star Wars phrase, a world between worlds. I think of and being in something
Nice.
like wrestling. You were in wrestling, and I was in and out of it for a long time. But I was in a very alpha male public safety environment. Um,
Hmm.
that I felt I lost a lot of my soul a little bit. The nice little kid, the good little boy that moved to Los Angeles started to fade away by the things I had to do on the job, which were at times very dangerous, but the people around me, and no fault of their own. Lots changed, but you and I, guys like you and I, we're kind of stuck in the middle. We're caught in the middle, as Haley Williams of Paramore would sing.
Nice. It's funny because I agree with that in a lot of ways, and I also can relate to the reason why I don't bounce in clubs anymore. It's nothing to do with the fact that
Mm,
they won't hire me. Obviously, it's got everything to do with the fact that even more so than a wrestling locker rooms, being a nightclub bouncer was damaging to my soul in the way I looked at other people and the
yeah.
way I started to perceive them. I would make snap judgments about them and treat them a certain way, and I realized
Mm-hmm.
anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But like just to draw a comparison to, so hopefully you go, it happens to everybody. You get in that type of environment, right? You start
What
to,
if I go
it
silent?
does,
I'll go
it
silent and
does.
just be like, "You monster."
It wasn't, you threw a man over a car. It was just once, but he deserved it, kind of, maybe. I don't know. You spit in my face. The point is, it's like, where were we going with that? But like, generationally
Yeah,
speaking, I've
yeah.
had some time to think about that, and I definitely agree because when we were kids, it would have been very easy to say, "Oh, we were the generations like
Mhm.
it'd be like, it's summertime, get out of the house, play all day, make sure you're close enough to hear me call when it's dinner time." Okay, and I was one of those kids, right? That's for sure.
Yeah,
Keep an eye on your brother and your sister, and don't go too far. Okay.
yeah.
And then now I look at my daughter who's 10. I'm like, oh, it doesn't happen, and I wouldn't let her do it, right?
Right.
No, not by herself for sure. Where was I going with that? But it's funny because we talk about the generational changes,
Mhm.
and I think it's just going faster because, again, the world is going faster. Everything is faster. The fact that,
Yeah,
when I was 10 years old, Japan was a place where ninjas showed up when I was watching
yeah,
a frickin' Remo Williams movie.
yeah.
But now it's a place that I've been that I can
Mhm.
talk to, and I have friends that are there and I can communicate with. So as a result of that, of course, once the world opens up, then everybody's mind opens up as well, and
Mm.
that's the scary part. The stuff that didn't seem possible in the late '90s when we were, wearing our tie dye and listening to grunge music. Well, some people anyway. Is now commonplace, right?
Yeah,
As a result of that, we're part of that generation where it starts exploding, and because we're keeping up with it, we're of the generation where it's like, it seems like we should feel like old fuddy duddies, but I still find myself able to connect in a lot of ways
yeah.
to kids that are 20 years younger than me because I get the reference points most of the time, and my parents and the people of the previous generation still just feel like old fucks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
along with that, it's like we get the benefit of being able to ride that wave and see the changes that's happening. And it's confusing for people of our generation that are from a more closed-minded upbringing, who aren't willing to broaden their minds and accept that the world is changing and we need to change with it, as opposed to just shutting it down and
Yeah.
wearing red caps and not seeing the futility of their stupidity. But,
Make Canada great again is what you're saying. Well, that's kind of where one of the big things I want to go to is maybe how you and I, you wrote me some very kind messages, and I knew you through the Force Center side of things, where you put in some great Star Wars questions. And then there's something though. I got to say this. This is just tracing our friendship here. The moment I hear someone is in wrestling and like in it, uh,
Mhm.
it opens up a spot in my heart for you. Where I don't have your long years of experience, but I've been in the locker rooms. We know some same people. We've been at the same events, and
Yeah.
it's a kind of immediate connection, and it's a weird, powerful thing. But one of the things I thought what I sensed in a lot of your messages, even some of your blogs that you have a great blog. I'll let you talk about there at the end too. I can put a link below.
I should I should probably update it, but go on.
But you got some great things on there. Is that wrestling? Hey, with change and change for our generation, and you're talking about folks in our generation, who seem to be making a choice to fight everything around them that is of change. And does, by the way, doesn't mean this is everything has to go smooth for you. You have to understand everything, or that new technology doesn't scare me. I get where my grandfather, he stopped adapting after 1985. My parents
Yeah.
kind of are in that. I push them a little bit. But we argue over that. There was a big argument we had in my house, my parents' house, like 10, 12 years ago, where I was trying to get them to text. And
Yeah.
my dad said to me, "We don't text in this house." Now he does. Now he texts me all the time. But it was just like, where does that come from? And it's human nature. It's fear. It's fear
Yeah.
based. And a lot of our generation, it seems to be split. And I don't just mean politically. That's an easy way to look at it. I think there's some truths. I don't have to talk about who you vote for, but I mean just the way you look at the world and social issues and just kind of understand it. Where I get puzzled when friends, high school buddies of mine, just seem to not want to understand any of the change going on around them. And I see them stunted for it. I see them emotionally stunted for it. And you and some of your messages were open about some of the struggles, open about some of the obstacles, but we're always striving to make a better version of yourself the next day. I
Well,
don't have a
thank you. Those are
question.
very kind. No,
That's
it's,
just a pitch.
I would like to say that you're a soft-hearted individual and who's a good human being. Thank you, Ken. I agree, and I feel much the same way about you. No, again, I
Well,
you're
let me
making
add
me blush
let me add
here.
this to it as you
Okay, okay, okay.
we're calling
So
it.
pontificate.
We're calling it in the ring here, and we're in a rest spot right now. See, kids, wrestling terms. Um, um, you because I mentioned coming from like the public safety environment, which has a locker room type of mentality. I'm not just saying what we talk about, but just this
Sure.
inability to process emotions. The only emotions that seem to be on display are anger and violence. And sometimes that's because of what we have to do. But I've done a lot of bad things under the guise of power, little sweet little
Yeah.
Kenny, because I felt we had to. This is what I have to do to keep things safe. You've been in a wrestling environment, bouncer environment, where you've not just, I'm not talking about acts and physical violence or anything like that, but the way you've thought, the way that it's just, it's easier to get in those environments and then to realize you're not changing, you're not adapting, you view softness as a weakness, you don't understand what strength actually is. And
Mhm.
therefore, guys, and I do mean guys like you and me, get kind of dumped out in the world and we got to find our footing. And it's hard sometimes with what's around us. And that's not an
It,
excuse, but it's the
no,
truth.
it is the truth. No, you're right. It's Oh man, I don't even know where to begin with that. I think I've always tried to maintain. Like I joke a little bit about the no matter how big and scary I get, I still feel like that same 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I've actually tried to cultivate that, try to hang on to that kid
It's a good
because
thing too, though.
it's like that kid reminds me to be kind to other people,
Mm-hmm.
and because it's so fucking easy to take the dark path because it's quicker to join you in a fight. It gives you that quick burst of power, to use those terms that we shouldn't talk about.
No, we can
But it's
talk about
so
it.
easy, and it's so but it's so tempting all the
Yeah.
time. And I see so many people use that and take those shortcuts, and they're just the most miserable motherfuckers I've ever met. They get no
Yeah.
satisfaction out of it, and
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had a period of time where I called it my complete asshole phase before I went back to college. Where it's like I was on the road, I was making no money, I was meeting ladies, I was doing all those things because I felt like I had to make up for lost time. I had to make up for my teenage years,
Mm.
where I didn't drink. I got beat up all the time. I wasn't cool. I was, in all the bands and
Mm.
God. Anyways, but like I felt like I felt like a failure. Like I'd failed at that guy. I'd failed at. Oh God, that's a good way of thinking. I failed at being a scholar. I failed at being somebody who's smart and going to go on and maybe be a politician, maybe be a news broadcaster, whatever. And
Yeah.
I'd fallen into wrestling, and I'm like I said, it was the first thing I felt that loved me back. And it took a couple years for me to get to the point where I'm like, this path
Mm.
leads to madness, right?
Mm.
And I still have moments, and I'm a little harder edged, and I've got walls up for
Mhm.
certain types of people, but and it's
Yeah.
easy too because like I'm 6.5 feet tall, I'm 300 pounds, so it's very easy to sort of if I want to be left alone in public settings to sort of put on the meanie face and
Yeah. Yeah.
act a little dumber than I really am, and people just fuck off and leave me alone. But but it's
Like, what do? Start eating rocks? Like, leave me
well,
alone.
well, just like it's a little get a little
Yeah.
sneer, and people tend to part like the sea for me in a
Sure.
crowd, and that's fine.
Sure.
But I
Mhm.
get no satisfaction out of that.
Yeah.
I get no sense of self worth. I feel like shit basically, and I don't want to feel like shit. So I
Yeah.
try, no matter, especially now that I'm trying to be kinder to myself. Part of that is being kinder to other people without giving too much of myself.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
No, you.
I don't think I don't think there is a quantifiable. This is what it is. Stomp. But I
Mhm.
definitely think it's a feeling, and you're on the right path when you do it, and I'm glad I did it for whatever reason, right? And if that's holding the door open for somebody or choosing not to call a moron who's saying moronic things a complete idiot and just trying to have an actual conversation with them, or just
Yeah.
calling out a guy for like, hey man, that girl's just here at the gym to do her thing. Maybe stop like creeping her out.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
And we quite frankly need guys like you who can give that face to those guys. And
Yeah, yeah, it's okay.
yeah, well,
It gets done.
yeah, yeah, no, it's a side conversation about how toxic
We can talk gym culture on another car.
yeah, yeah,
That's all right.
toxic masculinity does not mean that we don't need folks like you or my pal Jeff May who could knock someone out with a punch because he's a boxer. Because we need sometimes some strength to meet strength is what I'm saying. Different podcast. Get there. No, no.
But the phrase is don't mistake my kindness for weakness.
Yes, yes. That's
Yes,
yes. No,
that's exactly what
no,
it
no,
is.
no. It's
Right.
fascinating. Yeah, and much more to get to on that. But no, I hear what you're saying about the change. I was having this conversation with my mother recently. We'd stopped getting angry at each other over politics and our views of the world, and I just was trying to explain it now, and it was a more productive way. Life's short, and
Yeah.
I'm just like you asked me why in a puzzling manner. I don't get why you don't like Ron DeSantis. All right, well, I'm going to explain it, not in a way that makes me, makes you change your vote, but in a way that makes you understand me about not his policies, but what he stands for is abhorrent to me because of the people in my life. And in that conversation, it's a bigger thing.
Yeah.
I told my mom I am more myself than I've ever been, not because I've changed any voting records or understand different policies or this that, just because I think I've unburdened myself from this fighting change or trying to understand it or being negative in the corner of trying to open yourself up. And it seems silly. I talked about like the Spice Girls, how I used to make fun of them in
Sure.
1996. I was a rock radio DJ. And then
Yeah.
suddenly one day I realized, man, I actually kind of like their stuff. And I like a lot of what they're saying. That has passed on at times. We have, you're not going to like every pop artist. You're not going to like every music. That's not what it's about. But we just so lock ourselves in a way in this kind of environment. The moment you kind of peel it away, you start finding your actual true self.
Yeah.
When you're kind to others and kind to others' experiences and kind to others' journeys, and even if you don't fully understand them, I talk about this in my stand-up act. Do I understand every point and aspect of a transgender person's journey? No. Do I comprehend it as to why and how? No. Man, once I let go of those silly questions and just realized you're trying to exist as a human and I'm going to be here for that and for you, I started to find my true self
Yeah.
beyond. who you vote for. And that's what I was trying to explain. And that's what I think, whether you mention or not, you're getting to that kindness thing of opening the door for someone is sure of a hell lot better than judging them.
Oh yeah, and we said it earlier, right? It's negativity just breeds negativity,
Yeah.
but the inverse of that is true as well. Positivity breeds positivity,
Yeah.
and it's harder. It's hard. It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's not always immediate, but I'd much
Yeah.
rather people look to me as a light, somebody they can go to and they can trust, than somebody that they're afraid of. To put it like, and that's just like the most bare bones way of looking at it, right? You know,
Yeah.
I can be a hammer, but I'd rather be the person that, can hold you if you're needing a hug.
That's beautiful.
Which, you know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
and sometimes those hugs lead to me being a hammer if the situation warrants it.
Yeah.
But it's
Going back to the
again,
wrestling conversation.
yeah, 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 kindness, not weakness. It's right, but it's
Yeah.
it's true though, and oh, man, there's so much negativity in this world, and that's just because it's so easy, and there's so many people that are hurting, and they feel like they're not being heard, so that they just shout and shout and shout into the void, and whether that's people getting mad at like all these women in their Marvel movies, or whether it's Raise a Mary Sue, or whether it's all these immigrants are being told that I'm coming across the border are going to take our jobs, that wait for it are the ones you don't want, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
God, I don't even I can't even think of any examples that aren't just seem like pedantic at this point, but they're there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's so easy to fall into those traps. And God, I can't be part of that. I just can't, right? Even in my
Yeah.
own little bubbles, I deal with ridiculous negativity in like the local Central Canadian wrestling circuits, where people just don't understand who I am and want to talk crap about me and wonder why my 40-year-old overweight ass is getting booked for AEW dark matches and stuff, because they just don't see it, right? Like, what is he doing? Whose dick is he sucking? Like, what is this going?
Mm.
I'm the guy they asked,
Yeah.
because they know I'm to work with, right? It's like it's not that hard. Just show up, be kind, be vulnerable if you need to be, and do what's needed of you
I love it.
for other people. And guess what? That turns into something. I hope.
Mm-hmm.
I hope.
I'm the guy they asked is a pretty powerful statement. You've written some wonderful lyrics for some poems, some words for some lines for some poems here tonight. I Could Be a Hammer needs to be the title of your first poetry.
I could be a hammer if I only had a hammer.
If I only you and I feel, could talk on and on and on, and this is probably the first of many conversations I hope to have with you in a public
Please.
forum and a private forum. And by private forum,
Absolutely.
I mean at a bar in Las Vegas where we're laughing at in a loving way at Rock Riddle as he stumbles around.
Oh, I love rock.
Rock is
Oh, I
great.
love rock.
Rock.
Oh God.
For those listening, Google Rock
Oh my God.
Riddle. But Rock
Oh, he's
Riddle,
so
like
great.
present day. God bless his soul. I hope
Oh,
he's still going strong. I
oh.
haven't seen him in a couple years.
He is the greatest character. Oh my God.
If you want to see like
Oh,
an
he talked.
80-year-old
Oh,
man
he
in a
talked.
wrestling leotard, one strap up.
Oh, he talked my ear off on the phone for like an hour one night. It was fantastic.
He's
Oh, it was great.
he's a beautiful boy.
Oh, he's a beautiful man. He's doing something right. He's living his best life. That's for
He
damn sure.
truly is. And I bet
He truly
at
is.
some point in his life, Rock Riddle has looked into the mirror and said, "I could be a hammer." Um, you and I could truly talk on and on, but I don't want to leave without talking a little bit more about even like things like pro wrestling, some of our shared experiences. What has been one moment or five, but one moment in pro wrestling? Because I have a few, but I have such a small
Sure.
pool to draw from you, where you have been in a ring, something's about to happen that and you're thinking, what am I doing? But you do it anyway.
You like what's the craziest dumb shit I've done, or is it like something more profound than
So
that?
no. In the ring, like I agreed. We did this angle where my character, my guy, my gimmick was Tex Tunney, the last scion of the Great Southern Promoters, and I had a cowboy hat. You'd be in my stable,
There you
and
go.
my protege, who's a friend of mine, Joe Ruggiero, comic and everything, but my protege Lester Talbot, who was named, my friend Dan Farron named him after two great wrestling journalists, turned on me. So he hit me with the kendo
Bastard.
stick and turned on me, and then he called out his new wrestler was this guy named Terex. I think his lost a little weight and everything, but he was no joke, 5'10", maybe 400 pounds, and he could do a standing moonsault and just do a flip.
Mhm.
Very athletic, and all 400
Big old
pounds are
boys.
coming down on you. And
Yep.
I'm hearing the crowd cheers. He's coming down the ring. Gong, 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 gong. Jason is his name, and the crowd knows, or MPW crowd knows, and I'm just looking up at the gym lights, going, "Oh, I hope this works." And he's so good, I didn't feel a thing, but it was that 1 second
Oh
as I saw him get right next to me, I'm thinking, "What am I? Oh, it's happening."
yeah.
400 pounds flipping down on me.
Splish splash. You didn't die. Oh
Mhm,
man.
mhm. You got those kind of things where someone's
I
like,
got so many.
Adam,
I got.
tonight I want to get a spot in. We're gonna do a moonsault off the cage.
Let me tell you what it really comes down to. Is like I've had the pleasure of being in the ring with so many legends and so many up and coming guys. Like I help break in guys that are like top stars in the world today. So
Mhm.
break in's a little egotistical, but it's kind of true. But it is what it is. What I always go back to, and this will go all shot at my buddy Darren the Bomb Dalton, who we should have been a regular tag team forever and a day because we kept coming back to each other for like big events
Mm.
like locally, and then we had a good run before he retired as the old school wrecking crew, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It's been a couple of guys in safety vests and carrying sledgehammers to the ring and having fun with that. But
beautiful.
in like 2002, it was their last match as a team in Canada. He and I, in front of about 1,500 people at the local ballpark here in Winnipeg, wrestled the Road Warriors. And
Wow.
let me tell you, I was probably 26 years old. Dalton was like a little older than me. And we were the guys that, would run through people locally, right?
Yeah.
And we're standing in the middle of that ring and they play the LOD music. And in that moment, I was suddenly, oh yeah, I was suddenly 13 years old again going, I am going to die a death and I will eat every one of these death punches. And it
Yeah.
was, but in truth, it would end up being a wonderful thing. But that feeling where their music hit, they come down, the people go crazy. I looked at Darren, he's looking at me going, "We're going to die." I'm like, "Yeah, we're going to die." But my favorite part of that story is we actually end up having a decent little match. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There I am up in Animal's shoulders, about to take the Doomsday from Haku.
You two
Oh yeah,
finish? Oh wow.
I wasn't 300 pounds back then, and also they were going to not Henry O'Godwin me, which I was thankful for. But I remember getting up on there. That's a deep cut. I'm not going to explain
Deep
it.
cut. The
It's a deep
Godwin.
cut. But there I'm up on his shoulders, and I'm selling and looking at the people, and maybe I'll send you the link later if you want to see
Please,
it. But
please.
it's not super clear. But I'm up there and I'm selling, and I'm like, "Joe," as I say to Animal, "Joe," and he's like, "What? I love you, Joe. Don't kill me." And I just feel his shoulders go, and then I get taken and say, "Whatever." It was fine, but it was that I've had a lot of really cool moments that I loved, but that moment where like the guitar riff goes and
Yeah.
the scream, and I see these guys and the shoulder pads and the face paint and the spikes, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a dead man,
Beautiful.
and I am here for it." So
Beautiful. Look,
thanks.
there's something. I don't condone violence in the real world, but I can't tell you. I've mentioned it before, but I think you get it. The night Roddy Piper punched me and I had a swollen face for 3 days
Nice.
is I've gone on to be engaged, experience a lot of great things in life. Those are all wonderful and have their place high atop the list. It's the best 3 days of my life to walk around with.
Oh,
I couldn't move my neck. My face was swollen. And to know that after doing it, Rod came to me and apologized and said, sorry, man. I hit you so hard there. You're good. Rod, I'm great. Violence
that's right.
like that in a safe, controlled environment, when you survive it, you think, I think I can survive anything.
Well, that's true, and oh, God bless Roddy. Here, before you let me go, and I know we're getting a
Yeah.
little long in the tooth here. I went to the same high school as Roddy Piper,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
interesting, as he was the class of 65, 66, and 67, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah.
But may have been earlier than that, but whatever. And when I got to meet him, a couple years before his passing, I
Mhm.
was working at a gym that he came to with his son, and it couldn't have been
Cool.
kinder.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been kinder to everybody that showed up. His son, whose name I don't
Cool.
remember right
Cool.
now,
Cool.
that's right. Thank you. Was practicing his boxing, and he was just trying to no sell with his hoodie up and just riding a bike and trying to get his cardio in.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to bug him too much. I let him do his thing. That I because I got it right, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Walked up talking for a little bit, let him know I was about to go to Japan, and we chatted for a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. He was a consummate gentleman and one of the best to ever do it. And man,
Yeah.
yes, I'm glad you got to. I'm glad we got to share that kind of moment with a guy like that too, because he was something else.
He was a legend. He was somehow I've got to be on a stand-up stage with him in a wrestling ring. And I always say this, and I have no authority on it. My pal Steve Simone got to know him a lot better. My pal Paul got to know him a lot better, as so many others. But I just got a sense from being around him that this was a man who had lived a life both good and bad. And
Oh yeah,
he was going to do everything he could in his final years. And he didn't know. He'd always predicted kind of when he would die. And he was shockingly, sadly,
yeah,
tragically close to his own prediction. But
yeah.
he knew the cost he had paid, and he knew what maybe that cost was for other people around him. He every time you're around him, he gave everything of himself to those that asked, that deserved
That's
it.
right.
I saw him also
That's
shut people off who didn't deserve him, um,
right.
as if it was some sort of not penance that he was, flogging himself, but like I need to give more of myself to make up for maybe some of the stuff in the past. That was only my interpretation of it, and that made
Yeah,
him so sweet to every soul that stood in front of him.
I
And
would, I would, I would tend to agree. Yeah, I think I would tend to
well,
agree.
on
He
that
was
note,
a yeah.
on that note, I'm the
Ken,
great Rowdy Roddy Piper. Yeah, Adam.
this has been a
I don't want to
pleasure.
call you.
This has been a pleasure, man. That's fine. Whatever.
Um,
It's all of my stuff. But can I say something one more thing before we go?
is
I
is it
really
purchase this book?
we can do that too. We can get the plugs. But a personal note.
Yeah,
I still have the episode of Force Center that you guys read my blog post about my dad.
right.
And every couple of weeks, I queue it up and I listen to it. Just when I'm
Mm, mm. Needing it?
Joseph reading that, yeah, Joseph reading it, and you guys talking about it afterwards, getting to share your talks about your families and grief and some of the nice things you said. I just want you to know it means a lot to me that you not only took the time to read it and to share it with everybody, but also be very insightful and very, very giving, because that was a really rough time. And I think anybody that shouldn't be shocking for anybody who's lost a parent that they loved. That
Mhm,
it
mhm.
would be a difficult time for them, but like to this day, I've still got it. And there are days where it's like I'm having a rough go. And not only does it help connect me to how I was feeling at that time, it's also good to let me know how far I personally have come since that day. And so I can't say thank you to Joseph, but I will say thank you for doing that for me when you didn't have to, because it meant a whole lot.
Hey, you know what? One of the big lessons today is you and I are gonna be kinder to ourselves. I accept your accept your kind words. It was our pleasure. It will always be our pleasure, and so proud to know you. So proud to know someone in out there in this tough world and sometimes tough environments, trying to make the best steps forward every day. And that is why, on that smooth transition, like a radio DJ that I am,
Yes,
I want
that's
you
right.
all to check out Adam Knight's Cowboy Ending. Book one of the Overdrive series. Get into the series. I swear to you, if I'm lying, I am dying. This will be read by me, and I can't wait to one day just give the wrestling handshake and then embrace and have some drinks, whether Rock Riddle is around or not.
Fuck that. We're gonna do big hugs. You can read all three of my books. They're available on Amazon.com exclusively. You can get print copies, hard copies. Ebooks are good ways to go. If you've got the unlimited Kindle, you can do that as well. Please do that. If you're into merchandise, I have T-shirts over at ProWrestlingTees.com. I've got this design, about 4 or 5 other ones, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do more audio stuff as well because I'm
You should.
like I said, I went to college to do radio, and now I've got a microphone and everything set up. I might as well do more of this stuff.
Yeah, you were trying to get a mic to make sure you could do this interview. You did it, and now you've opened up another path for you. I believe that. Folks, thanks for listening to me and Adam talk about life, the universe, and wrestling. Hopefully you engaged with it. Hopefully you got something from it, or at least you got to hear me slur some words as I finish my whiskey. Any way you slice it, we had a lot of fun. Thanks for listening to the first episode. I think I'm still going to call it the Blathervations, but since I have trouble saying it, maybe I'll come up with something else. We'll stick around, figure it out. Go to patreon.com/Ken Napzok if you want to support, listen to the podcast, watch here on YouTube, watch my game streams. I'm too kind to myself. See you all. Bye.